A midlife crisis is more than just a cultural stereotype. It's a real psychological struggle that can surface between the ages of 40 and 60. Often triggered by aging, loss, or unmet expectations, it can actually lead individuals to question their identity, make impulsive choices, or abruptly abandon long term commitments. While not officially classified yet as a mental illness, the emotional and relational fallout is very real, especially for the spouses and families left behind. This podcast gives voice to those living through the aftermath, exposing the hidden pain, and seeking accountability, healing, and understanding. Thank you for joining us today on MLC Bomb Drop and Beyond. The stories and events discussed in this podcast are for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered legal, medical, or professional advice. Any names, locations, or identifying details have been changed to protect privacy. Any similarities to actual persons, living or dead, or real events are purely coincidental. The information presented on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. Always consult with a qualified expert regarding any decisions related to your specific situation. The views expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the podcast creators. All right, and I am here today with Beth. So, hey, Beth, this is not her real name, and Beth's going to tell us her story today um, about her bomb drop and where she is right now. All right, it's all
Yeah,
yours.
hi. Yeah, thank you for letting me be on your show and share my story. Um, you know, the story and the relationship with my now ex-husband started, as teenagers. He was 16, I was 19. He was one of these brilliant students that skipped 2 grades, and so we met at university. And lo and behold, our last names were very close in the alphabet. They sat us alphabetically. And so I sat next to this um, classmate that looked odd. But then I realized he looked odd because he was only 16 and the other classmates were 20. Like he still had freckles and big hair and all that stuff. Anyway, we became very good friends, which then led to us dating. And then we got married, had 2 beautiful children. Um, he's one of these overachievers that went on to become top of the class at age 20 or whatever he was. And we were both studying architecture, and he basically went on to become a very dedicated and talented architect at a very young age. We got married in September 1997, and I really was his only girlfriend. He was my only real serious first boyfriend. And we had 2 beautiful kids, and we kinda held and lived a very ideal life, living in a very nice community, well respected. He was a standout guy where everyone thought, he's super nice, super talented, super smart. Wow, lucky him. He has a beautiful family, beautiful home, community of friends, and I guess things started changing a little bit once the kids left the house. Your classic empty nester syndrome or whatever you call it. And kids left, and I thought, okay, great. Now after raising the children, doing the hockey thing, um, doing the dance thing with the children, we would have time together. But of course, it was not to be. When the kids left, he actually started to withdraw. He looked a bit unhappy. He'd get frustrated. Um, he all of a sudden decided he wants to go back and do triathlons and get fit. And he became very obsessed in losing weight. Not that he was a heavy person, but he basically lost 40 pounds in a very short time. and his food and what he'd eat. He'd start restricting things, and he was on this mission to basically get back to his teenage weight. And sure enough, right before my eyes, he was losing weight and signed up for triathlons and would be leaving on weekends and coming back, um, and just, "Oh, where were you?" "Oh, yeah, yeah, no, I was training, da, da, da." Nothing really made me think otherwise. And then in the fall, he one day announced to me, "I wanna be alone." And I thought, "Okay." I thought, "Okay, he's going through some sort of mental health thing." He's a workaholic in denial, one of these people that can work 90-hour weeks and still train for a triathlon. And I thought, okay, all this pressure of working, training, he wants to be alone. Okay. And I really took it for something that he needed to recover and just get back to a space and a place where he can function and be happy. So, um, he also announced, well, we've been married for over 25 years and I owe it to you because I made vows with you that we should maybe try marriage counseling. So, of course, I agreed. And it was during the marriage counseling that he announced that he wants to not only be alone, but retire alone. And he was one of these people that wanted to retire early at 55. He had gone to university at 16, worked tremendous hours his entire career. And I thought, okay, just a few more years till retirement, then we can start our new life as a retired couple, spending time together and now having fun after all the many years of working hard to build a life, build a family. Um, and so I just thought that was very strange. And the marriage therapist kind of said, okay, um, I think you have burnout. She kind of recognized even the reactions when I said, alone, like, you want to spend Christmas alone? Like, what's wrong with you? And this is again someone who was, a year or two earlier, just the perfect husband, well, maybe not perfect husband, but a good husband and a great father that my two children really, really respected and looked up to him as most wonderful role model ever. And I would have never in a million years imagined this would happen shortly after they left the house. It's been quite a shock to everyone.
So you guys, that session with the counselor with the burnout, you guys were thinking first that might be he might just be burnt out, needs a little recalibration,
Absolutely. We wanted dad to have, as he call it, he needs space. Um,
and he'd been a workaholic all those years.
Workaholic his entire career. And we wanted to have him better. And so at first we were a little shocked, but at the same time, during the session, I said, well, why don't you take some holiday and go on a vacation on your own? Because he was a typical person that would never take his 8 weeks owed to him and be like, and he'd be working every time we would go on holiday and it would be annoying. But I thought, maybe he just needs a holiday on his own to recover, to which the marriage therapist said, "That's a great idea. Do you agree?" And so at first he's like, "There's no way I could take this time off of work." But then he thought about it and then he agreed to take 5, 6 weeks off and travel to Asia on his own. So, you know, during the time.
Oh, wait, let me ask you, when he was, Beth, when he was traveling throughout Asia for about 5 weeks, did you guys stay in touch?
A little bit, but again, by that time, I was kind of suspecting he had midlife crisis, and so as I read more and more about midlife crisis in the weeks he was gone, um, they coach you to just give them their space, and so I didn't reach out to him a lot while he was away. I wanted to respect his time alone, and I thought when he would come back, it would be, "Okay, I've had my time of reflection. I'm here to recover and, you know, start our empty nester lives together on the right track." Um, but to my horror, he comes home after his trip, and within the first half an hour of him arriving with his knapsack, he basically ended our marriage in one line saying, "I don't think it's gonna work out between us." And again, thinking he had midlife crisis and this mental health issue, I said, "Okay," and I was very empathetic and I didn't react, just like the book said, don't. And he said, "I'm now leaving because I want to see the kids." So he had taken a trip back, which took 24 hours to get back to the city. He then turned around and drove to see our kids who was attending university outside of the city where we live to see them. But we agreed he would not say anything to make them suspect that he was still wanting time alone because they were in the middle of exam time. So as promised, he sees them and he arrives back on Easter Sunday. And so my friend was hosting the Easter Sunday lunch, which we've done for 15 years amongst us close friends. And he announces as he steps through the door, "Okay, Beth, I'm moving out." To which I went, "What?" He goes, "And I'm taking my brother with me in 2 weeks," because his brother lived with us. We were helping him out. And I thought, "Okay, when are you leaving?" "Today." And he said, "And if you want to go to the Sunday lunch, I can understand if you don't want me to go, but I'm happy to go if you still want to go." So in shock, I was like, "Yes, let's go see our friends." And sure enough, we went to the Easter Sunday lunch at my friend's, and immediately my friends knew something was up by the expression of my face. But of course, he has this incredible ability to compartmentalize and not even act as if anything was wrong. And so after our lunch, he was explaining to me how he wants peace in his life. He just wants to wake up with a blank canvas every day, and it's him that gets to write the story. And I said, "Okay, like you need space. I get this. Is there anything I can do to support or help you?" And he said, "Yep, you can take care of the house on your own. Don't ask me to do anything when it comes to household requirements." So I said, "Okay, fine." And I drove him to his apartment that night. And I said, "When did you rent this out?" He said, "Oh, last Thursday," which I know is a lie. So again, I drove him to his apartment, and it was in another part of town, opposite side of the town. And for a while, he was, quote, living there until a few weeks later, where my father died. And I actually, a month after he left, I had lost my job. So that was devastating. And then a month after I lost my job, it was good because my father was ill and in the hospital. So I actually got to see him for a full month every day because it's hard to work, gone through this tremendous trauma of my husband wanting space and moving out and losing my job and so um I did get to spend some quality time with my father, and then he passes away a month after I lost my job. And I was in California at that time actually because I was at a friend's funeral, believe it or not, friend's father's funeral. And so I got the text that, my father had died. And so my son, who sat next to him, all of a sudden um, looks down and says, and notices that there's these texts were coming in from an initialed party. No name, but 2 letters. And my son, who's extremely intuitive and has great EQ, basically told me the next day, he said, "I think dad's having an affair." And a part of me didn't want to believe it because, again, here's a man who I've known since we were teenagers, standout guy, honest, completely out of character, to think that he was doing all this because of an affair or another woman. So, of course, my son was right. And so I did confront my husband and I said, "Who's this person texting you?" To which he admitted it's a colleague that he runs with. And I asked him, "Okay, like, do you have an emotional connection with her?" And to which he said, "Yep." So then I knew that all of this, wanting to be alone, all this stuff was a complete lie. It was quite
And now
devastating.
yeah, he's chapter 3 of that book that you had mentioned.
Chapter 3 of that book. And, I read, this book, which was really instrumental when he was away in Asia. And the first 2 chapters, the first is how to prevent it. Second one is, your midlife crisis. But then the third chapter is about, the destructive midlife crisis where they have an affair with a younger woman and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, thank God that's not me. I just have to deal with chapter 2. But all of a sudden, s- classic textbook, younger woman, colleague, um, just, you know, it, it's hard to explain when you realize the truth. It's quite numbing. Like I was numb. I was in shock. I don't know how you would describe that, but um, nonetheless, I think I was in denial and in shock, and I still continued to see him. And he would, reach out to me and say, "Hey, do you want to go for coffee? Do you want to go for lunch?" And I did. I met up with him. We were amicable, but I don't even know why I was, because here he is. He basically walked out on me and my family and very quickly moved in with his colleague in the same area that he had rented his apartment. So that apartment was for his brother, although he said, "Yeah, I'm moving in with my brother." That was all like a front. And this is, again, the most honest human being, trustable, standout guy you could ever meet. And he's revered at his firm. As I lost my job, he was promoted to a very high position. And um, and if that didn't seem pretty devastating, uh, a month after my dad's funeral, I was feeling a little bit ill, and I thought, oh, I was kind of um, had a bit of pre-diabetes, and I thought, oh, I better take my blood, better get it checked, and a month after my dad's funeral, to my shock and horror, I was diagnosed with cancer. Um, and I couldn't reach him. I'm like, oh my God, I have cancer now. So I have no father. I've lost my job. My husband has walked out on me and I have cancer. I was trying to call him and he was nowhere to be found because he was camping with his new girlfriend. Um, and so I thought, oh, he saw me taking care of my two parents right till they died. Um, the care and the compassion I showed about making sure they were well. And he, I asked him, look, if I have to go through treatment where I'm bedridden, would you come back and live with me? And to which he said, I'll think about it. And supposedly he had just started this new relationship. And so, if that's the truth, to respond like that when, your partner of almost 3 decades, needs help and support, you know, I didn't buy it. Not
Mhm.
for once.
Was he
Oh,
when
no, he never came back. He never came back. He continues to live this fantasy life of doing all those things like camping and canoeing that he always wished to do. And so, you know, his girlfriend, or, otherwise known as Horseface,
homewrecker?
homewrecker, yeah. This is, they live this life of, oh, let's go away to Europe for the weekend. All these things that he never had time to do with me. All of a sudden he has time now and he's free of, I want to quit as a husband. I don't want any more obligations in life, he would tell me. Um, so he is living a life of, single bachelor with his new homeworker. So it's very disappointing to everyone.
Beth, when you got the call from the doctor, where were you when you got the call about your diagnosis?
So I was actually, I'm very blessed, Trina, to have amazing friends. Really, they helped me get through, these four horrible things that basically, bomb drop was just one of the four bomb drops. Um, and so I was at a friend's house. The community and my friends, they really supported me. And so I was over at my friend's house for dinner when all of a sudden I get this call from my doctor at 7 p.m. on a Sunday. And so I knew something was up. I better take this. Excuse me. I know we're in the middle of dinner, but I have to take this call. And sure enough, you know, she said, are you sitting down? I need you to be in a separate room. I need to talk to you. So I knew something was up. Um, but the good news is, you know, I was diagnosed with a type of cancer that is treatable. I didn't know, however, if I had the type of cancer that was treatable because um, this type of form of cancer I have, some are deadly. Um, again, all the while, when I had a biopsy, I had 2 weeks I had to wait before its results. He was nowhere to be found. Like he wasn't there really truly to support me. He came to 2 appointments, and I was out there mowing the lawn, doing everything, keeping the household as promised that I'd take care of everything. And, we went from a beautiful family of four with a dog down to me. And the dog duties too. Left me with the dog duties. And so he could go camping on the weekends and fulfill his freedom and peace that he was longing for. And, basically abandoned me. In a nutshell, that's what he did. And he did, you know, in a way abandon our beautiful children too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And, I'm gonna go back to when you I'm glad you were with your friends when you got that call. And was your husband then one of the first calls you made going out to tell,
Well, he couldn't be found. I was trying to call him and,
uh
he was off grid.
Okay.
And so he was out camping with his girlfriend.
Yep.
So he found out Monday, the next day.
And that was his response.
Yeah, he just was okay. Like, you've got cancer. Okay. Do you want me to go to your appointment? It was kind of like that, you know. Um, and he didn't do the right thing. Like, he didn't do the right thing. Like, his freedom and his fantasy of being with another woman was much stronger than going back and kind of saying, "Hey, let me just put this on hold. Okay, my wife is going through three major things. Let me just put this little relationship on hold." And she didn't also think, "Okay, you know what? Like, be with your family, be with your wife." They're equally, she was apparently admiring him in the office for years. And so she probably feels, wow, finally he's mine. And there's no way I'm going to give that up. And so the two of them, both of them, continued on and still have this relationship together, all the while leaving me, when they say they call it the left behind spouse, that's what I am. I am definitely the left behind spouse. And having to manage all these horrific things on my own, basically. Whereas, you always envisioned your partner to be there through sickness and in health. And, you know, if supposedly you just started this relationship, am I not worthy to kind of think that maybe, you know what, I gotta do the right thing.
Mhm.
I'm not really that bad, Trina. I'm not that bad. It's not like, you know,
I know. And you guys were, like, best friends, partners for over 30 years.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I
And I took care of him when he was down. I must have made 17,000 meals for him. I've done how many thousands of laundry runs for him. I mean,
mm,
he didn't get to the position he is now without me also working full time, raising two children, doing everything I need to do. But he was that guy that would show up, 15 minutes before a dinner party and say, "Okay, what do you need me to do?" So, and I think he was that guy that got up at 4 a.m. to rush off to work while he left all the dishes in the sink. And his main concern getting up was going to work and getting a coffee, because mom, I've got it, And I was the one dropping off the kids at school and cleaning up in the morning, making sure their lunch.
yeah,
And so there's a whole morning routine. He was absent for 20 years. And yet he kind of think, "Oh, it's not such a big deal." Like, no matter what I said, there was nothing I could do to change his behavior because he's a workaholic and he doesn't admit he has a type of addiction. And so, okay, well, someone has to do it, and it was me for. But he would, oh, come on, you know,
it's
he would
so
beg to differ.
yeah, it's so disappointing to think, you guys did that all the hard stuff, raising the kids, making a life, and then finally when the day comes when you can roll back a little, start to travel together, have fun, um, then this happens, you know?
Yes,
It
yes,
that it just doesn't seem fair. I mean, we all know life's not fair, but still, you know?
yeah. And I guess now, because I'm obsessed with midlife crisis, and now I recognize he's a dismissive avoidant, learning about that attachment style. He grew up in a military family where their family moved every 2 years. So, I think a lot of people that go through midlife crisis, they have some sort of trauma during their childhood years. And I think it was always positioned to that it was a positive thing to move and detach from your friends. Okay, now we're gonna move to a different country. Isn't that exciting, boys? It would be that kind of. And I think when he called being in this long relationship as prison, I think part of it was because he was conditioned to move every 2 years, detach, make new friends, start a new life, change your identity, and have this exciting thing. And then you go on, he moved so many times from when he was born all the way until he went to university. And so I do believe there's some of that, where it just was a struggle for him to be in such a long-term relationship. Um, but with this, him walking out and leaving, he left an entire community of people that believed and trusted him. And I think he truly felt, oh, they'll still be my friends. I truly felt, oh, work's going to be okay. Oh, I've okayed it with HR. They, it's not a conflict of interest. It's okay that this relationship is happening. Well, a year later, you know, you got to wonder if it's that easy, knowing that now people gossip and they realize a standout person who's now got a big position did this to his own family. Like, if I knew that of someone, I'd think, wow, you walked out on your family? Like, what? Um,
Because it
so,
shows a lack of, integrity.
yes, lack of integrity, all the lies, the layers of betrayal. He must have really, and I do attribute it to this phenomenon, midlife crisis, because it's so out of character. It's unbelievable. You can't even recognize him
What
with the
about the
weight
kid?
loss.
They're adult kids, and so do they see a difference in their dad's personality?
Well, I think yes and no. My daughter, who's very mature and open-minded, and she's dealing with him differently than my son. She said, "Look, he made a mistake, but I don't want to be that child that doesn't have a dad." So she puts this behind her and wants to have a relationship with him. So they do meet up. Um, but my son, on the other hand, comes back disappointed meeting him. He's like, I still don't know who dad is. He's still a workaholic. Um,
So they
I have
can
no
see,
use for
though,
him.
then it sounds like your son especially can see that his dad
Oh
is
yes, yes.
different from before.
And he is the one that confronted him and called out his workaholic behavior. Dad, I've known this all my life. You are a workaholic. To which he denied that. Dad, I feel like I've never emotionally connected with you. You drove me to hockey for 10 years, and yet in the car, you never talked to me. You were on the phone at work, right? Like a lost opportunity, Dad, to connect with me. And so I think, you know, he was old enough to stand up and tell his dad how he felt as an adult.
Good for him.
And it was hard for him. And so, um, and he's an incredible kid, like the best, like you can't, you feel like so lucky to have two amazing children. And how could you go home to the home wrecker
Yeah,
instead of your children every night? We struggle with that. I struggle with that
yeah. Because you know
because
that so many people would give their right arm to have that.
yes. And I feel like my life now, I'm coming out on the other side with the tremendous support of my friends, and I feel lucky that I have access to them every day if I want. Although, they're both going back to university in the fall, so I'll be alone again. But, we go in on family trips and life goes on. Christmas was spent, felt the same to all of us because my sisters and nieces and nephews came over. The dinner looks the same because I made everything and I've made everything every year. The only difference was there was not this person, but it didn't really make a difference. Whereas I think he spent Christmas alone, you know? And I warned him about that. I said, that spending Christmas alone is something, that you might regret. And so he goes, no, I understand. I understand. I said, maybe like maybe I'll be in a relationship in the future if he goes, I understand. And he was so, before the bomb drop, so okay with that. But it was pretty clear that when the kids came home and they didn't call him or want to see him for, they were with me for the first week before they even reached out to him. And he looked miserable after Christmas because he did spend it. Maybe he had a coffee with his brother. I understand now. But, I don't think he realizes the bigger picture and the repercussions of doing something that until the day he dies, he will have people think and look at him a different way. And, he told me, I want to wake up alone every morning. And I know this. This is, call me weird. This is something that I know I want to do. Like, this is before I knew about her. And so, it was all a lie. And in fact, I had the pleasure of talking to her accidentally on the phone.
To the homewrecker?
Yeah. Yeah. And, it was after a call that one of my good friends made to her, and because she was very angry at what's happened, and so, no, she said, "No, I need to confront this woman who has basically, you know, had a firsthand she's a firsthand accomplice on this. She knew what she was doing training with my husband. She's known him for years. She's probably seen our children's baby photos. And so she knew what she was up to, and so did he. And so, um, she was she when my friend told her about what had happened, she said, "Well, that's not what I what he told me what happened." So he was lying to her about the whole splitting up. I'm sure she was told one story, and I'm sure he didn't tell her, "Oh yeah, I walked out on my wife and children overnight."
Let me ask, Beth, do you think he made it appear as if he was a victim?
A little bit, yeah. He would say, he told our kids, I couldn't make your mom happy. I tried. I tried for years to make her happy. She deserves better. Um, and he would tell friends, I can't give her what she needs and wants. Okay. I can't give her what she needs or wants. As if in a weird way, I had something to do with this because I'm too demanding, and he would call me needy. Um, but when he calls me needy, and then I think you went and had a 3-decade relationship with me, and yet you couldn't even actually take a break and spend time alone. You went from me straight into the arms of your colleague. Now who's needy? Now who's alone, right? He's the needy guy and I'm alone. So it just, I think
Oh, wait, so
friends
you were saying
and
you
family.
talked to her.
Pardon me?
I'm sorry, you said you would talk to her on the phone?
Yes. Oh, yes. And so they agreed, my friend and course face, or otherwise known as homewrecker. They agreed to talk a week later because she says, you know what, this is too much. I need to talk to him. This is not making sense. So they agreed to talk again a week later. And my friend phoned me when they were supposed to have their phone appointment. And she's like, it's not her calling me, it's your husband. So he tried calling my friend. And so I said, okay, don't talk to him. Don't talk to him. And I called my friend back about 10 minutes later and I said, and she had said, okay, you know what? I'm going to try one more time. So I phoned my friend back and she's talking over me on the phone. I'm thinking, what, like, it didn't make sense. Um, and all of a sudden I hear a third voice on the phone. I'm like, oh my gosh, who's this on the phone? To which, in a very quiet manner, she revealed it was her, the woman, the homewrecker. To which my friend said, "Oh my goodness, I meant to put you on hold. I hit merge call." So the three of us were awkwardly on the phone together. And so I confronted her.
Did you know who it was at this point? 'Cause you said it was a
Yes,
colleague, so you knew
yes,
who the colleague was, but this was the
yes,
first time you'd interacted with her.
yes, on the phone, and I told her, the lies, how he wanted to wake up every morning for the rest of his life alone, and I asked her, "So is that true?" And I basically said, "Does it make you feel good to make love to a married man?" I asked, very, a question I would never dare ask anyone. I'm like, well, it just came out. And I told her the impact on the family and the children.
Well, what'd she say? What was her answer?
Well, she was like, well, he's a grown man and he can make his own decisions. And yes, I'm sorry you have cancer, but that's not his fault. And, my friend in the previous call had really asked her to walk away from this. Like, let them figure out their marriage. Let my friend grieve the loss of her father. Let my friend deal with cancer with, her husband's support. You need to walk away from this. To which it fell on deaf ears. She was not going to walk away from this. And, I get it. Affairs happen and all that. But, quite frankly, and I told her, if that were me, I could not, like, wake up every morning in the arms of this lying man, knowing that his wife needs support and needs him. I would not feel comfortable knowing that, I had anything to do with destroying a family. Like, but obviously to her, this is probably her dream come true, that she's with the man she's admired for years, the smartest man in the company, and you know, the leader in the company and in the office practice, and now now she lives with them, and they can go biking and canoeing every weekend now. Like, it's kind of a very selfish, cowardly, um yeah, friends describe them in 3 words: coward, selfish, and an asshole. Sorry. Um
Well,
Whereas
y well,
years ago, it'd be like dedicated, talented, standout, like 3 different words to describe this man.
wow. Well, and I think you said your kids had really looked up to him as well.
Oh, yeah, for my daughter, she used to grow up saying, "I wanna marry someone just like dad." And my son said, Mom, I thought he was God. I listened to everything and believed everything he did, and now I think he's not."
Aw.
And so it's been very disappointing. Um,
That's heartbreaking.
it is heartbreaking, and it's heartbreaking. Um
Well, it's heartbreaking for your husband, in a
I
way.
think
I mean,
so.
'cause
He doesn't know now, and I remember when he left, I said, "You don't know this now, but in 5 years, you're gonna regret this moment. You
mhm.
don't know it now, but in 5 years." Because by that time, I'd read that midlife crisis lasts from anywhere to 3 to 10 years for men, and, he will have an awakening and kind of, he has to live with that, and that's one thing that, I've moved on, in a sense, made new friends, deeper relationships with my friends. I know who my friends are, truly. And I also love to design and make jewelry. And so, it's been an escape to really focus on things that make you happy and things that make you feel, instead of thinking of all the terrible things, I really try and focus and do things that make me happy. And everyone would say that. And honestly, it's easier said than done. But it's not an easy task. I mean, I'm still angry. I still think about it every day. Um, but I also feel like he's dead to me at this point. Like, it's as if he died. And my life, my Christmases, my family trips, it's gonna be with the 3 of us. And the happy times are there. We're still laughing, we're still having a good time together. And I have a very strong sense of family and friends. Whereas, you know, He has only a brother that they're kind of estranged, and his parents died, both of them kind of young, unfortunately. So he really has no family except now this woman, you know? And so if things don't work out with them, like he will have a day where he will
Crash.
realize maybe the grass isn't greener on the other side. I left a community of friends. I left a beautiful family. I left respect and admiration by everyone.
Yeah. I don't even understand how somebody like, the homewrecker gal can sleep at night and wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and know that she has something to do with the fallout of the devastation
Yep.
of
Single woman, never married, 13 years younger than me. She feels she's probably hit the jackpot, right? So, and she's not going to let anyone take him away. I don't know. I'm not sure, Trina. I'm not sure.
Ugh. So, self-care wise, you've got great friends. You mentioned too that something about, even deeper friendships.
Yes, like, people, there are kind people out there, and especially in the community I live, it's a tight knit community. I know most of my neighbors. We have dinner parties, you know, tell me what you need. I'm there for you. And, there was one friend that I made in a cafe because she was admiring my dog, and um, the dog, for some reason, really, really liked her. And she kind of said, "Oh, it must be so nice having a dog." And at that time, I was thinking, how do I find a job with a dog? Like, I can't leave the dog home alone. There's four people taking care of her, and now there's just me. Like, there's a lot of anxiety because the dog is like a member of the family. And so I told her, I just felt really safe to tell her, well, she is a blessing, but she's also, it's hard to take care of this dog on your own when you're trying to blah, blah, blah. And I just told her everything. And to which she had tears in her eyes. She goes, "I know I don't know you, but can I give you a hug?" And so
Aw.
the two of us in the cafe are hugging. We're strangers. We're both in tears. And she said, "Look, I know I don't know you, but can you take my number? And if you want, like, let's meet up for coffee another time. And you know, I'm here to support you." And so I've met many friends kind of that way where you take a chance because you feel good about, you take their kindness and you can feel good vibes. And I have about 3 or 4 examples, and some of them are my best friends now, like 15 years later, because of that moment chance on the street.
Isn't that
Uh,
crazy? I love stories like that. That
yeah, and I think if you're good and you connect, and, I do feel very lucky being empowered as a woman to be vulnerable and to reach out and connect with people at a very deep level. Like, I think he shuts out a lot of his emotions. He compartmentalizes. He's friends with everyone, but has no friends, if you know what I mean. So for him, he has no one to talk about what's gone on, Like,
Mhm.
he doesn't even tell her much, right? Because she was left in the dark as to what happened. So for him, everything is all his decisions, all his feelings are in his brain. Like, even the fact, like, him finding an apartment and renting, doing all that behind my back is, and not even expressing his feeling of unhappiness. We had gone on a vacation together just weeks before he left, celebrated. He wrote me this beautiful Valentine's card saying that he will always love me. These are the reasons why you're an incredible woman. I will always love you. Like, you know, a card before he walked out on me. Um, yeah, I just, it's unconscionable and unfathomable, and all these words like that I just never thought I would be using to express him or the situation as to, you hear about other people going through marriage hardships and all that, and you think, well, thank God, at least I have someone solid and honest, and he's dedicated to his job, and he's a standout father, he's well respected, and in an instant, your life can change forever. Like there is no more Christmas with him, and I will make sure of that actually. Like he assumed it'll still be the same. We were supposed to, he says, okay, I'll come over Christmas morning. We can open the presents with the kids. I mean, this was all in his mind and request. But by Christmas, I went from being in denial and shock to anger. No, you're not going to step in my house. Now it's my house ever again. And it's just those little things that make me feel I get a little bit of justice, that I get a little bit of control over this, and I have a say in what's happened, and that is to shut him out. Um, in 27 Christmases together with family and friends are no longer for him. He can spend it with homewrecker, go ahead, but you make your own arrangements. And again, Christmas felt the same kind of beautiful meal that I prepared. Like, it's not like, where's the good food? Where's the Christmas tree? It felt the same. Just he was the only one not there. And even the nieces and nephews didn't say, "Hey, where's uncle?" They didn't even notice. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
And you know what? If he was working all the time before, as a workaholic, you mentioned he'd go out in the hallway or, have to step out to take a phone call, and if he wasn't really there, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So
He would bring he would think about his job all the time. He would talk out loud of meetings he'd had or, you know, but he would do anything for to win you know, to win a job, for his firm. Anything. And yet he wouldn't do anything to save his family.
mm.
He wouldn't do anything to save 26-year marriage. He wouldn't do anything to support someone who has cancer and lost her father and is unemployed. I don't know. It is mind-boggling because I thought he was that guy that would.
And you guys, I think in the beginning you said you guys were having lunch, you'd see him and you'd be amicable, but now there's no amicable.
No, because the last time I met him for dinner, I find out too that she was away on a business trip. So of course he's like, "Yeah, you want to meet up for dinner?" Um, at the end of the dinner, he accidentally called me her name. So I said, "Excuse me, you just called me what? You just called me her name." And I walked out of that restaurant.
What he said?
So that
Did he feel bad about it, or
well, he was like half trying to chase me out going, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." But,
Mm.
you know, I I couldn't believe he couldn't even focus on me for a talk about how the kids are doing, and to call me her name at the end of the dinner was he was absolutely mortified and embarrassed, of course. But that was kind of like the last straw for me.
Mhm.
Like, I am out. Like, I realize it is over. I did have a little bit of hope that maybe with time apart, he'd realize, you know, no, this is not cool. I need to go back to my family. But that was definitely the last time I had an amicable conversation with him.
Wow.
Yeah.
And are you guys divorced now?
No, and this is, it's funny. I do have not many, but some friends who are separated. Again, it's a community where for some reason they're all together, right? And so now I am the ninth wheel, right? Everyone's coupled up but with me, but I still hang out with my very close friends and they invite me and we travel together. And again, I'm not going to let uh, someone, a partner, define who or what I do, right? I'm gonna live my life with happiness and around people who make me happy and not feel, you know, weird or anything that I don't have my husband and everybody else's husbands at a dinner party. I'm not gonna let that, you know, impact me in any way socially. Um, but yeah, no, a lot of, you know, a couple friends of mine who are just because they care about me, the first thing they said was get that separation agreement immediately and protect yourself. You know, you don't know a year from now what this homewrecker is going to influence and impact in terms of what you get versus what he gets. So even though it felt absolutely unnatural, it's like, you know, being pregnant after giving birth again. I knew I had to be a warrior and do this and meet with a lawyer. Um, it was a mediator and see him for about 6 or 7 meetings to work out how the separation was going to look like. And it is devastating to see all the hard work. I mean, we had renovated homes together. We had built out a significant um, nest egg, like just everything, your whole life, 30 years of building a happy family life, accumulating wealth, all to see up on a spreadsheet, up on a screen, and 2 columns, one with my name, the other column with his name. And how do you even out, all your assets? And it's surreal. Um, and it's really hard. But if there's anything I could give advice to anybody else, you have to soldier on, be that warrior, and just consider it like protect yourself and do it fast. And so I'm very glad I did. Again, very unnatural feeling, but at the end of the day, you do have to look out for yourself because clearly he's not going to look out for anybody but himself on his end. So,
That is so important. Doing it sooner than later is so important because they do change as they get
yeah,
spiral into it.
absolutely. And, I'm sure he feels tremendous guilt. I'm sure he feels shame because he was always one of these men that would feel horrible if he made someone feel bad. He'd come home saying, I had to let go of someone today. You know how hard that is knowing he has a family like that, that just, I have to live with that, and he would say things like that. And I'm thinking, okay, that's like business world. And yes, people do get let go. I got let go. This person probably has found another job. Life goes on. And yet it just destroyed him, like knowing that I had to make that decision in terms of his career. And so I think, surely you must have a little bit of the same kind of remorse, knowing that he made the decision to basically, betray an entire family and abandon them, so to speak. Um, but maybe not. I'm not sure because the power of midlife crisis is something that I understand is a psychological phenomenon where they think they are doing the right thing. They think that this is right for them. They've made the right, and there's one day where he's talking to himself. He says, and no one's going to change my mind. I said, what would you just say? And he said, oh, nothing, nothing. He was talking to himself that no one's going to change his mind, that he's going to basically walk out on me. Like now I realize that's what he was talking himself, that he's going to do this and no one's going to get in my way. And yet he had such remorse and such a guilty feeling about having to let go of one of his reports. And I thought, wow, like work is like so much more important than you know, me, that's for sure. And I always felt that, but I didn't realize it until, you know, he had the capacity and the capability to do what he did. Yeah. He said, you know, for the marriage to work out, two things would have had to happen. I would have had to make you priority, and you would have had to accept me the way I am. So those were the two conditions for our marriage to work. So, he kind of confirmed to me that I wasn't the priority, Um, and I sure did, do a lot for the family and for him for 26 years. And not to say he didn't. If you were to ask him, he was there. He was a present dad, did the hockey thing, which is true. He showed up every day at 6, and that's why he would get up at 4 so he could have, quote, "family time," and, that is commendable, and I think the kids did have a father in their lives, but, being present and being emotionally connected are kind of 2 different things as well, which I think as an adult, my son comes to recognize that, you know, they're 2 different things?
I'm so glad you circled back to that because I was thinking that with your son, he actually confronted his dad. I'm so proud of
Yeah.
him for doing that, you know?
Yes.
'Cause it's not easy, like you said.
No,
And
it's not easy.
um, so that's great because hopefully he won't follow in those same footsteps of avoiding conversations. And, you know, um, that's a huge thing.
It is, and he said, "I know I've never confronted you, Dad, but today is the day. I need to talk to you like a man."
Wow.
And so we did confront him, and he says, "Now I have the courage to," you know, he was that perfect child that would say, "Yes, Dad, yes, Mommy," and, but he knows right from wrong. He really does, and he knows what has been done to his mother is just not right. Um, yeah.
Wow. Well, I think, let me make sure I don't have any questions here. Oh, it's so funny when I think you mentioned accomplice. And I thought, yeah, the homewreckers, it reminds me of a bank robber, the spout in MLCs like the bank robber. But if they're hooked up with an affair partner, homewrecker, that person is an accomplice, you know?
Oh, yeah, an active accomplice, like,
Yeah.
yeah, she knew what she was doing. She could have said no to whether and he says, "Oh, it's not her, it's not her." Oh, so you're admitting that you, like, you know, doesn't it doesn't make me feel better him trying to protect her.
Yeah.
Um,
But they do. That's so normal. They
yeah,
do. That's so
yeah.
normal. And I do have 2 other well, one other question, I guess. When he did move out in that day, like, I guess it was after Easter Sunday, was he excited to move out?
No, I mean, he looked like he was full of thought, but I would have to say, he gave me he said, "Thank you for being so understanding." You know, giving me and showing me incredible love and understanding about me wanting to move out. Like, he told me all that. And I'm like, yeah, I want you to be happy. And he would say, you deserve to be loved. You deserve happiness. I, you deserve better than me, all this stuff. And, I would say in the summertime, he, yes, had this like glow about him because I think he was in this relationship freedom, and just with a new woman and just no more home, no more husband obligations, all these
Freedom.
things that freedom. Um, but I think, I don't know because he would never be the type to admit otherwise how he feels a year later. I don't know how he feels, and he will never share that with anyone. So
Mm.
he I'm sure it's not the same glow on his face that when I last saw him. That's
I'm
all I
sure
can
it's
think.
not. I'm sure. Because now reality is set in.
Yes.
I remember my husband was very excited. Uh,
Yes. Yes.
couldn't
There's
let he
definite
could not get out that driveway fast enough. He was so
right.
excited. I was
Oh,
like,
yes.
"Holy mackerel."
Yeah. Well, and I found it ironic because he said to me, he goes, "You need to live life and learn how to live life without me." He kinda made it clear in the summer, last summer. And then at the end of our separation agreement, he was telling our lawyer, "Okay, do you have any last words?" And he says, "Yes." And he looks over to me, he goes, "My hope is that I have a relationship with you for the rest of my life. Not in marriage, but, my wish is to always have a relationship with you." And I thought, how ironic, like the summer before, he's saying, I need to live life on my own and don't expect him to be around to support me or take care of me. And a year later, upon signing the agreement, he's hoping that I will always be there for him in a relationship capacity. And I'm thinking, even if I was if I was his girlfriend, I'd be like, why would I want to be with a man that has two relationships and would want two relationships, one with her and one with his ex-wife? Like, who does he think he is? And I did tell her when I talked to her on the phone about the love letter and how he said that he will always love me. I said, does that make you feel good knowing that the person you're with will always love another person while he's with you? Doesn't that make you feel a little bit, you know? And so I left her with some words of thought. Whether or not she has any remorse, I'm not sure. But certainly I wanted to make sure,
Mhm.
if not later, that she remembers what I said to her.
Yeah, yeah. That's funny. Mine said that too. "She will always love me." But then a few days later, I got served with divorce papers, and I'm like, "Wait, what?" And, trust me, he did not act like he loved me during the divorce at all. But, it's just like, whatever. Their brains are just full it's just a foggy brain, you know?
It's
Nah.
it's bizarre. I couldn't even write this stuff. I couldn't if someone were to tell me 5 years ago this would happen, I would
Oh,
probably just laugh in their face.
right. It is so, is so not believable and so, just completely bizarre, I don't even know the words for it, but, we're all in that club, Beth, so, it's
Yeah.
okay. It's sad to think there's people out there dealing with this mental health crisis, and families like ours that have been impacted in so many ways and generationally now,
Yeah.
but
And I wanna thank you too, Trina. Like, honestly, your show I think many people who go through this, they scour the internet for information and what else can I hear just to make sure that you're not the only one out there. You're a good person. You think, what's wrong with me? People think I'm a person that, quote, has it all in terms of like great family and friends and, you know, all these things going for me. And you think, wow, like that wasn't even enough to be and keep a relationship. You almost think, what's wrong with me? But, I think the reoccurring theme is it's not you. And I don't think anything I could have done, I could have been the perfect wife and this would have still unfolded. So
Mhm.
I guess, I want to thank you for just doing what you do because I think it is important as part of the recovery to understand that A, you're not the only one, and B, you're not crazy. And C, it will someday be okay. A year later, in fact, in 2 days, it'll be a year since I've been diagnosed with cancer. And I found a job. I'm kicking cancer's ass. And I hope to be cancer free before the end of the year. I've gained back the 20 pounds I lost. I'm not a big person to begin with. I'd lost 20 pounds. I have the passion and new ideas for my jewelry line. And
And I
I
love
also,
your jewelry. Uh,
oh, thank you.
I wish
Yeah,
like,
no,
that's the one thing I wish I could talk about it here on the show, but, it is gorgeous. I'm
oh,
super
thank
excited
you.
about that. I can see you're gonna have a major glow up, and, it's gorgeous stuff. And, I will point out, I think you had mentioned he had at one point said you were the perfect wife and thanked you for
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He said to me as he had tears rolling down his eyes and leaving me once he announced he doesn't think it's gonna work out between us, he says, "You really were the perfect wife. I don't know anyone like you. And you went over and above the expectations of, what a wife should and could be. You were the perfect wife." And, it just that's what's so messed up, and he kept saying, "You deserve to be loved. You deserved," and then, you're like, well, okay, if I deserve to be loved, like, why can't you be that person to step up and make sure that happens? It's almost like, I'm washing my hands of any commitment and loyalty to you, and good luck because you deserve this. And it was just, huh? I don't know. I don't know, Trina. It's
But you know
just
what? That I got the same thing, and then I can tell you it's amazing, because now I've met so many people through this show, left behind spouses, which I sort of hate the LBS thing because I really feel like we're all forward moving spouses, but, you know, all the ones that have had to endure the being the LBS, are amazing people. I mean, one after the next, and they are all like 12s, on a scale of 1 to 10 of
aw,
being
yeah.
awesome humans. I can tell you, they are all 12s and above, you know? And, yeah, you look at the MLCer and you go, dude or gal, you really screwed up because you're probably never going to find another person like this in your life that's going to love you unconditionally like that person did and build a life with you and have just they're just amazing people. Um so that might be I don't know, maybe it's not great to be amazing because then you'll become an LBS. You know, maybe it's better to be a loser. Uh,
Right.
but, anyway, seriously though, it is, everybody is so amazing, and that is the best thing about going through this whole crisis is the opportunity to meet other folks that are truly amazing. And like you said, friendships that are deeper and richer and more meaningful, they're real. There's no avoidance or, they're not surface relationships, that's for sure, you know?
No.
Um
They're lifetime friends. They are
Lifetime
like
friends, and that is huge, you know? So, yeah. Well, any last tips for self-care?
well, I think, if I'm a runner, so I even through my illness and the medication I take every day, you know, I didn't want it to stop me from running, so I still like this morning I ran 3 miles. I want to say, self-care, it's easy to just be in shock, and like I said, I had lost 20 pounds. I went so skinny, and it's easy to, not take care of yourself when you're in shock and trying to get over a very shocking life events, right? However, I think you have to find the courage and be a warrior. And almost what I did, which helped me, Trina, was I actually had a checklist. And it's almost like acting like a robot and going, okay, what's next on my checklist? You know, changing all my account numbers so that my utility bills go not through the joint account. It was like checklist, and take the emotion out because they are things that need to be done, and try and do them as if it's a job task. And so that kind of helped me get through the separation agreement and all the things we had to prepare for that, moving all the banking stuff that we had joint for 27 years, separating all that, um, finding a new job, which I did, continue to eat well, continue to have fun, and, just because it's not going to get better. It's not going to go back the way it was. It never will be. And so part of it is accepting that. And it's hard because you think, no, he was my best friend since he was 16. No, of course he's there for me. And to realize that, no, he's not there for you. And not only that, he's, you know, supporting and there for somebody else. It's like, has done nothing for him like I have for the past 26 years. Except now they can go camping, right? But,
There's
yeah.
bears and rattlesnakes out there.
Yes, but, he is one of these super human beings. He is. He will overcome and probably attack and kill that bear, right? So, but yeah, don't think I don't think about that, Katrina.
Ah. Well, Beth, thank you so much. I think, that's awesome, and, I really appreciate everybody hanging in there with us today and hearing Beth's story. You are a total warrior, and we wish you all the best as you fight this, cancer battle, and, yeah, you look fantastic, and, I'm gonna go shop for some of your jewelry right now, so,
Aw, thank you.
anyway, thank you, Beth. Thank you so much for being on our show today.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for all that you do for us.
Oh, you bet.
Okay, bye-bye.
You guys, forward moving spouses, you are not alone. Left behind spouses, you are not alone. Those in crisis, you are certainly not alone. This is just crazy how epidemic this has become. I have a waiting list now of people from around the world that I'm trying to get to. And if you've been through a midlife crisis or been impacted by someone else's and you want to share your story, I'd love to hear from you. Hang in there, you guys. I will get to all of you. Please reach out to me at mlcbombdrop@gmail.com and visit us on Facebook and Instagram, MLC Bombdrop. Um, and just remember, your voice matters. Your story could be the one that helps someone else feel seen. It could help someone else feel heard. And it will help somebody else feel understood. You are not alone, no matter where you are in your journey. If the bomb was just dropped, the earthquake just happened, if you are 7 or 8 years in and you're coming out of starting to wake up and awaken to this, um, you are not alone. It's sad that this is epidemic, but we're here to provide support. So until next time, take care and live authentically each and every day. Thanks again, you guys.